would you say that most people think the same way as you, as in regards to there's no such thing as a silly question?
Yeah, not in the legal profession, because people are very, very conscious about portraying themselves as someone who just effortlessly gets it and just understands everything without needing an explanation.
They don't overthink it.
Yeah.
Whereas I think a really smart person, they start going through all these different situations, what's going to happen here. They just do it.
Yeah.
And they're just fearless in that way.
Yeah, that innate confidence is really important, actually. Yeah, so I think when I think about deals or really any kind of relationship, be it a friendship or a professional relationship, what you need to be doing is looking for common ground with someone. And how do you assess what that common ground is?
Good question.
It's listening.
With so much content out there, how do you avoid all the noise and cut straight to the value? What has become very apparent is that the best way to learn is to surround yourself with those you aspire to be. But you can't just watch what they do. At some point, you have to turn it into an action. Knowledge isn't power. Applied knowledge is power. On this podcast, we will go on a journey as we speak to people who are making a difference in their industries, and people who, if you listen to closely, take action and turn you into who you want to be. My name is Mark Sclair, and this is Your Turning Point. Anna.
Hi, Mark. Nice to be here.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I wanted you on the show today, and the fact that hopefully there's going to be hundreds of thousands of people listening is that you're involved in an industry at the moment, which truthfully, I don't know enough about. So the fact that you're here and giving up your time so I can understand more, I really appreciate that. Yeah. So being in the industry you're in, which is as a lawyer, within Fintech and the financial services regulations.
Yeah.
What is Fintech? Because I hear so many different phrases, so many different terminologies. Like, can you put it into a nutshell of what it is, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, it's an amalgamation of two words, financial and technology. And I think we've all seen in this sort of post-COVID world, we are more dependent on fintech or financial technology than we've ever been before. And so essentially it's a coming together of these two worlds. And from a legal perspective, you really need to have an eye on the financial services regulation, but also a really good understanding of how technology is evolving and developing. It's moving so fast. And part of our job as a lawyer is not just to know the laws off by heart and inside out, but actually to also understand how the tech works. So it's quite an exciting development in both the legal and non-legal space.
Yeah, and so let's dive a bit deeper into this then. So I've been in the UAE for the past 17 years now. I don't think you're much shorter than that, actually, are you?
13 and a half years.
13 and a half years,
Time flies.
And one thing we can say about the UAE is always staying ahead of the times and keeping its finger on the pulse and going where it needs to. Yeah. And that's because of the rulers and how forward-thinking they are. And one thing is the financial services industry and the fintech area, we seem to be doing well at keeping up with the pace of what the rest of the world is doing. So how are they preparing for this? How are they keeping up with this?
Yeah. So I think, to be honest, the UAE government has had incredible foresight, and I'm not sort of just saying that as another person to jump on the bandwagon of the praise, but actually there really has been foresight. I mean, about 10 years ago, we were hearing from the government about wanting to adopt blockchain technology. And I think none of us knew what blockchain technology was at that point. No. And so I think we've seen a real keen interest in technology of all kinds, and also a real encouragement of tech companies, financial services companies, and now fintech companies to come to the Emirates, set up shop here, and really not just lead the way for the region, but actually globally now. And the UAE has become a very exciting place to be because of that. So It's fun to be at the forefront of things.
And if you don't mind me saying, like, you're working with the government at the moment in regards to regulations. I mean, how is that going?
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, I'm always amazed at the level of ambition. I mean, we're both from the UK, quite conservative country, wanting to really look at everything with a very skeptical eye before adopting things. There's a very different culture here, a different mentality, and that's fun, that's exciting to be a part of. I work with a lot of governments in the region on developing their regulatory regimes, predominantly in the fintech space, but sometimes in more TradFi or traditional financial spaces. And I have to say, there is constantly an urgency to develop, to evolve, to get ahead. And as a lawyer, that's exciting. It keeps me on my toes.
So as a lawyer, you practiced in the UK originally.
Yeah.
So how can you be a UK lawyer and be practicing in the UAE?
Yeah, so I think it's no secret that the UK and the UAE have a very long-standing special relationship, and I think that the Brits, along with other people from the wider Middle East region, were some of the first expats to come here, even before the official formation in 1971 of the UAE. And as a result, there's been a special acceptance by the Dubai Legal Affairs Department, the legal regulator in Dubai, to allow British people to come here and to practice law here and have a special license that grants them the right to practice law. So my law firm, Adelshaw Goddard, we are registered in the DIFC, but all of us lawyers, we will have a certificate from the DLAD, which allows us to legitimately practice here and sell ourselves as lawyers.
And that is with any type of company within the UAE, like they have to fit within the laws. So just so I understand, because I know there's many free zones within the UAE, and I know that even as a person working in a free zone, there is a law there which says that you can only do business with someone in that free zone. But there seems to be people doing business all over the UAE.
Yeah.
So are there any restrictions in regards to that, or where somebody may sign a contract for one part of the UAE and it doesn't apply for what you're doing?
Okay, so there's been super interesting development on that point in the last few weeks, but perhaps I'd dial back a minute and just set the context. So the UAE is a relatively small country considering how many legal jurisdictions it has within it. So yes, we have the 7 Emirates, and then we have free zones within those Emirates. And those free zones were initially set up to allow expats like you and I to own 100% of the shareholding of their businesses, because back in the day, before the free zones existed, you would always need to get a GCC sponsor who would own 51% of the shareholding in your business, and you would own 49%. Things evolved, things changed, and the free zones were set up to allow expatriates to own 100% of the shareholding of their businesses. So that was a big advancement in itself. But the free zones had that limitation that what happened in the free zone stayed in the free zone, basically.
Good way to put it.
That being said, a few weeks ago, there was an announcement. It's been announced in the press, although the official regulation hasn't yet been released, that actually the free zones, certainly in the Emirate of Dubai, are now... companies registered in those free zones will now be permitted to conduct business in the wider emirate. And so that's actually really exciting because it just removes that barrier, which frankly there was always good flexibility with, but it just officially removes that barrier and allows that freedom of trade within the emirate. I would expect that we will see similar initiatives in the other emirates in the near future.
Yeah, look, I'm fascinated with the law. I mean, I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a barrister. Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, I actually worked in a chambers, in barristers' chambers in the UK when I was young.
Okay.
I was a clerk.
Oh, amazing.
I was a runner. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. Running
gosh.
to the RCJ every day, taking the documents. Yeah.
So criminal chambers then.
Criminal chambers,
Okay.
Yeah. And lucky enough, last year, one of the barristers from the chambers that I used to work at, she's actually been here about 12 years now, I think, maybe even longer. Yeah.
Interesting.
So I had her on the show, and she came with a wig, actually, as well. So a wig and gown. Yeah. And I think, when you think of UK law, I think that's how most people see it, especially with all the UK shows which are on TV and they go into the courts. But that's not something which you do.
No, it's actually really funny because that is so inspirational for many kids or aspiring lawyers. And in fact, my father was a criminal barrister in London. And when I was a kid, I used to go to the robing rooms in the courts and dress up in his wig and gown and run around causing havoc. But I'm very boring. I don't do that kind of law. I very much focus on commercial and regulatory matters, and I don't go to court. So I'm not a litigator. I'm a non-contentious lawyer, essentially helping people do deals rather than fight after something goes wrong, which, yeah, maybe I'm a lover nor a hater. It sounds cheesy, but it's how I like to see it. But also something that I do here that I just wouldn't have the opportunity to do in Europe is I work really closely with a lot of government entities in the region to help design and write law. And we've just been working very closely with the Qatar government on a number of tokenization initiatives. I have to say, it's super exciting stuff. I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to do this kind of work. And you know how it is in the UAE right now, conference season is kicking off. There's lots of excitement, lots of people coming in with fresh ideas, wanting to push those boundaries and try new things here. So it's a real pleasure to be advising both governments and companies looking to come to the region. So yeah, it's an exciting moment.
Okay, so what's interesting there is you help to put deals together. Yeah, and that's what I got from that. And that's really important because I want to dive a bit deeper into that actually. So how would you advise and help a client that comes to you to put a deal together? What is it you're looking for to protect them as well, I guess?
Yeah, so I think when I think about deals or really any kind of relationship, be it a friendship or a professional relationship, what you need to be doing is looking for common ground with someone. And how do you assess what that common ground is?
Good question.
It's listening, right? It's so cliche. We hear it all the time on, podcasts or in sort of business books or whatever, but actually listening is key. And it's something that I find many people just aren't geared to do actually. And particularly in the corporate world where perhaps there are egos at play, etc. Sometimes it really benefits you to just sit back, zip it, and just hear what other people have got to say.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was, this is going to make me sound like a real geek now, but when I was at school, we were learning about the Cold War and the breakdown of the USSR. I remember our history teacher talking about Gorbachev as a leader and how he would sit with all of his politicians around the table and he would ask every single one of them for their opinion on whatever subject matter it was. And then he would essentially side with the majority. Now, I don't do that exactly. I'm not always siding with the majority or siding with the person who has the loudest voice. But I think what's really interesting about that approach is you can then start to understand what elements of each of those opinions overlap. And when you're finding common ground between people, that is the start of a healthy relationship, ultimately. However, maybe I put my slightly more aggressive lawyer hat on, and my duty ultimately is to make sure that my clients are really protected, because we all know that as lovely as it is to find common ground, relationships can also break down. So my job as a lawyer is to really make sure that the contractual mechanisms are in place to offer complete protection. And that can be quite challenging, and part of that often involves a prolonged negotiation with the other side. But ultimately, there's always a middle ground that you can find, and your job as a lawyer is to bring people together and find that middle ground.
Yeah, so I think what happens there is people look for like a win-lose sometimes. They're like, I want to win this. I want to make sure the contract favours me. But really, it's about a win-win.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't really understand what that other person needs unless you're actually going to listen to them about it. And they're coming to you actually, especially on the other side, and they're saying, I want this has to be in there, that has to be in there. But then when you take the time to actually understand, and sometimes it's not even what they're saying, you've got to kind of read between the lines or pick up on their facial expressions or see how they're reacting in those moments when somebody else is speaking.
Yeah.
And you've got to be so observant with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what you said about listening.
Yeah.
People do listen, but they're just waiting for the other person to finish so they can speak.
Oh my gosh, 100%.
Yeah. And I get it, because even now, whilst you're speaking, I'm thinking to myself, right, I don't want to mess up on the next bit. What's the next question going to be? You know, but I'm really trying to take the time because there's so many points that you're saying, which, and again, this is one of the key reasons why I wanted you on here, because as your role, you're qualified to be a lawyer, which means you've put all the hours in, you've got qualifications, you went to university, you did all the great things. I never did any of that. But there's so much stuff which you're talking about, which is applied to what I do daily, which is communication, listening, critical thinking, in those moments, actually taking the time to remove, having empathy.
Yeah, but you don't need to go to university to be good at any of those things. And actually, I was having a conversation with a client yesterday about how we are probably all a bit over-educated in the formal sense of the word. And, you know, we grew up in a time in the UK where we were all being encouraged to get to university, even if you were studying a degree that probably wasn't going to enable you to earn sufficient money to pay back the university loan.
Media studies.
Well,
Okay.
not here to pick on any degrees,
Okay,
but actually, looking back at the legal profession, we have some of our best House of Lords judges, or now Supreme Court judges, never went to university. I remember when I was at law school reading judgments, and in particular reading the judgments of Lord Hope, who was an incredible draftsman. I mean, the way that he could just articulate something in plain English so that really anybody could pick it up and read it, even articulating the most complex matters in that way. He never went to university.
No.
And actually, there used to be a case in the UK where you could essentially do a legal apprenticeship. So you would start off as a clerk or a runner, and many barristers back in the day would take that route. Yeah. And actually, I have to be honest with you, I look back at my school friends from high school. The people who have really succeeded are by no means the people who got the very best grades.
Yeah, I agree.
There's obviously a bit of a further conversation about what does success mean, how do we define it? But if we sort of define it in a very generic way, actually the people who have really flown are those people who knew how to deal with people. And it's as simple as that. And I see it across industries. And that's why you sometimes see people really at the top of the food chain who perhaps didn't get the best grades at school, but they are so astute when it comes to dealing with other people.
I've got many friends like that.
Yeah.
Many friends which left school, was told by the teachers they will never amount to anything. Yeah. Like, said it to their face. And and those guys now are running successful businesses, exited businesses as well. Yeah. I think along with what you mentioned, another part of that is they don't overthink it. Yeah. Whereas I think a really smart person, they start going through all these different situations. What's going to happen? What's going to happen here? They just do it. Yeah. And they're just fearless in that way. Yeah,
that innate confidence is really important, actually. And I think that's a really difficult one because not everybody has an innate sense of confidence. In fact, actually, I consider myself quite a confident person, but I have massive moments of imposter syndrome. And when I made partner at my law firm, I found myself I was much younger than other people in a similar position. I was more female than many people in that position. And I have to say I had real moments of imposter syndrome, and you almost have to sort of snap yourself back out of it and say, hang on a minute, I've been put in this position. I can do this, and I can absolutely knock it out the ballpark. But that confidence, along with that sort of social intelligence or emotional intelligence, let's call it, that's the winning combination, actually. Yeah. It's not having straight A stars or straight A's.
So I think imposter syndrome is such a massive thing. Yeah. And I always try to turn it around because a lot of the time you don't think you're good enough. You don't think, like somebody says, go for the promotion. You're like, well, no, I don't think I'm good enough. But Jimmy Carr said something really good. He was on the Stephen Bartlett podcast. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And he said, like, he was at Cambridge University, which I never knew he went to. So very smart, very intelligent. Yeah. He said, like, I didn't feel I was right to be there. But I worked harder than everybody else because I didn't become complacent. Now, if you can turn that and say, like, I'm not good enough. Okay, but I have to work to get there. Yeah. Then all of a sudden, you're always prepared. Because those ones that get on stage and they think they know their notes, they think they know their questions, they've not prepared well enough, and they become complacent, and it falls apart. But then you've also got the other side of it where they over prepare, and they don't, and it just doesn't come across natural or authentic. So there is that middle ground.
Yeah.
But I think it's that mindset shift of rewiring your brain, I guess.
There's also no substitute for hard work, right? And this is something that I would love to find a way that I could just sort of ingest a new law that comes out without having to sit down, print it off, and just read every word on the page. But there is just no substitute for doing the hard work. And as a result, you do have to put in the hours and put in the time. And maybe some people do have real lucky streaks in their life, but I think that actually most people who are really successful, they've also worked damn hard to get there.
It will never, everything now is kind of trying to simplify stuff.
Yeah.
And even you'll go online now and they'll be like, oh, I've done this for 30 years, buy this course or this book or this program, and I'll save you 30 years of headache in reading this for one day.
Yeah.
And that's not, you had to go through that 30 years of pain to know what it is all about.
Yeah.
So even though we've got experience and we can advise people, they still have to go through it themselves to really appreciate and understand what they would do in those moments as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm actually sort of a bit old school because I still have a notebook with a pen and I write everything, because if I'm just typing notes or jotting down things on the computer, I find I don't absorb it as well as when I'm actually physically writing the words. And I think that also the same, I love podcasts. I listen to podcasts actually all day long, in the car, in the shower, everything. But I also find that when I read a book or read an article, I absorb a lot more than I do when I'm just listening. And I think we're living in a world now where everyone wants things really fast. They just want to ingest everything really, really fast. But there's something to be said for just taking a moment, sitting down and serving the time, so to speak.
In the intro in this podcast, I say knowledge isn't power. Applied knowledge is power.
Yeah.
So we're all watching YouTube videos, all watching video clips, and we're going, oh, I know this.
Yeah.
But until you apply it and actually see how it works for you, then you're not actually a specialist at it.
Yeah. And also, I have to say, on that note about being a specialist, so I work in an industry where, it's essentially an emerging industry. Fintech is still a relatively new concept. And I hear so many people describing themselves on LinkedIn or presenting themselves at conferences as being an expert on this or an expert on that. We're actually all students in this. Fine, some of us have taken the time to read a bit more than others, but actually we're all learning here. And I make my team, I do it myself, sit down at the beginning of every day and read the news for an hour, just absorb everything. And maybe that sounds really strange, or perhaps not, I don't know, maybe not what a sort of traditional lawyer would make their team do. But I think unless you're really on top of wider global knowledge, and then also reading about some of the technical detail on how some of this stuff works, you're not going to be the best lawyer for your client that you can be. Merely knowing the laws, the regulations, just not enough.
One thing can be affected by something completely different. So that's why you've got to stay on top of things, because new laws, new updates are being given.
100%.
And so you might be a specialist in this, but something's going on there which is now affecting this. So I always talk about that oil price. For years it was always the UAE performs from $70 a barrel.
Yeah.
Okay, so when it goes below that, then what happens to the market?
Yeah.
Budgets get cut. All of this spend which is going to go on to grow the country. All of that, I've been here since 2008. So I've seen it drop, I've seen it go up, I've seen all of these things happen. But the one thing which is really important is that when those things do happen, and we saw this in the real estate industry as well, there was no escrow account in 2008.
Yeah.
People were not protected. Now, because that has happened, and even in the last few years we've seen this, things have happened and have had to protect clients from it. And it's moving so fast. Yeah. So you mentioned about conferences. It's conference season.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So, and you mentioned as well about experts getting up on stage.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people which are online at the moment calling themselves experts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So even now I've seen in financial services now, to be an influencer online, you've got to have a license now.
Yeah. About time.
About time.
Yeah.
So I know that there's probably some clients you can't go into too much detail about naming names or anything, but where have you seen some mistakes that people have made where you've had to kind of protect them, or they've come to you and it's been too late?
I've actually had a couple of situations, and I'm not sort of here to speak badly about other lawyers or other law firms, not at all, but I had a couple of situations recently where people have sought legal counsel and they've now come to us to help fix things. And this has happened more to me in the last 6 to 12 months than I've seen in the rest of my career, to be honest. I think that's maybe because there's just a lot more activity happening right now, and there's a real sense of urgency from businesses to get things done quickly. And I think that sometimes people are in a rush to choose the cheapest or the quickest lawyer, but there's no real substitute for just doing things properly and having someone who is legitimate in terms of how they are conducting themselves and acting for you as a client. I think that contractual protection is one problem we've already mentioned on the podcast. Another thing is just really understanding the regulatory framework here, really understanding how the UAE works, how things fit together here, what the regulators are doing, which perhaps isn't written down in the regulations. And I think that that's where, having been here for a long time and having built those relationships over many years, we really benefit from. And I say that actually for my colleagues as well. It's by no means just me. And certainly when I was joining this law firm, that was absolutely something that I asked in the interview process, because I want to be making sure that everybody is taking that same view and we're working using a common approach.
So something I find interesting is the word trust and how do you establish trust with clients? And a lot of people think that when they start to do a presentation, you have to show the company logos you've worked with, you have to show how many years you've been an expert in it for. And you touched on listening as well, which I fully believe builds trust with that. But when you're in a room with somebody who is, the CEO of a business, a sometimes $1 billion business, and they're in there saying, show me, tell me, how do you establish a ground where you do have a right to be in the room with them?
This is really interesting. It's something that I've come across a lot since having made partner about 18 months ago, because actually, I'm sort of pretty young, pretty fresh face, and find myself in this rather senior position where I'm having to gain that trust from people. So what I will say is, it usually is quite easy when you've had a referral. So when another client has spoken highly of you, they've referred you to a new client, the new client already has that confidence in you. But actually, when it comes to approaching somebody from absolute scratch, there is the question of how you portray yourself in a manner that not just shows your expertise or shows your skill set or your talent, but also makes people feel comfortable with you as a human being and want to confide in you, tell you sometimes really confidential information about themselves or their business. So what I will say is that there's no substitute for authenticity. And I see people in the corporate world putting on quite a facade or a bit of a veneer about, being this person or this person. But actually, I typically connect with clients on a human level, on a personal level to kick off. Because, again, it's all about finding that common ground. Yeah. And then I think it's a question of me really listening to them telling me about their business, them telling me about what they need to achieve and why they've come to see me. And then me very subtly letting them know that I've got that previous experience that could help them. But equally, I'm someone who is very quick to say, you know what, I'm not the best person to advise you on this. Let me refer you to a colleague of mine, because there's nothing worse than people having a go, but also professing to be an expert. So I'm quite quick to make those referrals. and to hold my hands up. And hopefully that will render me almost more trustworthy, because when they do have something that more relevant to my practice that I can really help with, they will then feel like, okay, she's only going to take this on if she really knows about the subject matter. So I think I'm also thinking, just lastly, about building those relationships for the long term. Because relationships that I made 13 years ago when I first moved here are now paying dividends. And I should have a good example from yesterday. So I met up with a girl who I used to go to law school with. And we were both out here, 13 and a half years ago. We were junior lawyers just starting out in our career. And she now is a very senior lawyer for an international bank here. And sure enough, she's been sending quite a bit of work to my law firm. And I actually had lunch with her yesterday, and I asked her, what are you looking for? If you don't mind me asking, what are you looking for from a lawyer? What makes you choose to instruct me versus someone else, or someone else versus me? And she said, responsiveness is really important, because of course all clients like to feel valued. Also, a really pragmatic approach and holding your hands up if you can't do something, but equally really stepping into the shoes of the client and understanding their risk appetite, understanding their business needs before you're just giving vanilla legal advice. And so really tailoring it. And she also said, and this is something that many of my clients said, they just want someone that they can get along with, someone that's approachable. And that's critical, and it's something that lawyers sometimes misunderstand or overlook.
There's so much I want to unpack there, but let's start from the very end, what you've said, because I've also heard some people say, I'm not here to be your friend.
Oh.
I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here to protect you. I'm here to make sure that you're in this. And it's interesting because the person who they said that to, they are a relationship person. And it was interesting because this person, I won't go into names, but they're a practical joker. So they ended up going with a legal person who was a little bit of a practical joker. And they'd have this back and forth, and they were really actually chummy in that regard. And then things became quite serious in this legal matter. And the legal person was still being quite funny. And the response was, that's not funny.
Interesting.
That's not funny. But I said to the person, how can you expect them not to try and be funny when you're trying to be funny the whole time? So he's only trying to adapt to how that person was. And that's why you took him on in the first place.
Interesting. But that goes back to the point about authenticity, right? And I think that you can conduct yourself in a professional manner, but you can still be authentically you. And part of my personality is I want to be friends with everyone. And maybe that makes me sound like, a bit of a child or a bit of a puppy, but actually it's just part of my personality. And so me people pleasing sometimes is something that really spills over into my work life. But actually, I think that having that personal connection with your clients where you like and appreciate each other on a personal level is really important. And I've said no to taking on clients because I didn't think that we fitted well together personally. And I had an incredible opportunity just under a year ago with a potential new client who was looking to come to the region and set something up. And I could see that he was going to be quite high intensity, and he was also looking to cut corners on things because this is just who he was as a person. And I said, you know what, don't think I'm the right lawyer for you. I think you're going to get frustrated with me slowing you down and trying to persuade you to really follow the law. And I'm going to end up getting frustrated because you're probably going to go outside my legal advice. So I said from the beginning, it's a no from me.
I think one of the biggest strengths you can have is to say no to things. And it's interesting. So let's go unpack a little bit what you said there as well, because you tend to be, I won't hold you to this, but you said you tend to be a bit of a people pleaser. But then sometimes you have to challenge your clients as well. And because they're saying, we want this, this, and this, and you clearly know that that's not going to happen. And you have to stand up to that person. So how are you able to do that? It's not easy.
I think I mean, honestly, I'm not good at saying no. And I'm naturally a very yes person, but I've had to learn how to say no, and I've had to learn to draw boundaries. I'm not perfect at it by any means, but they're very easy no's. If something is against the law, or if something's going to jeopardize my reputation or my career or one of my clients, it's very easy for me to say no there. But there are lots of situations I have where people, both in my personal and professional life, maybe try to overstep the mark a little bit. And I'm not very good at saying no in those situations. And although I listen to sort of endless podcasts about how to better conduct myself, it still doesn't come naturally. It's something that I'm having to learn. I'm getting better at, but still got a way to go, I would say.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, and I see it in businesses, they're doing their work, and then somebody comes along, oh, can you help me with this? Can you do this? And you want to help them. And it actually just affects your whole day and ruins everything. And a lot of the time, you're just better off saying like, okay, at the end of the day, once I've got some time, I'll be able to do this. But it's very, very hard to do. I completely get it. One thing with me is, especially on a social side of things, I say no first of all. Yeah, because I hate people that commit and then cancel at the last minute. So I prefer to like at least apologise later and say, look, I said I couldn't go before, but maybe if there's still a chance, I'll do it. So I prefer that, and that's just how I am. That's
actually a good approach. I've been guilty of the opposite, and it's something which, when people do to me, it's a really horrible experience. I hate it when people are not true to their word, and so I have a responsibility to live up to that as well. And I think saying yes to things and following through is super important. It goes back to trust, right? But also saying no and following through is important too. So
I think if you flip it a little bit, just quickly, is that if I say yes to something, it actually makes me do it as well. So I won't want to let that person down. So I see the other side to it if I'm going to be like that. But also, why am I going to, someone says, oh, we're going somewhere in 3 months. Can you come with? I don't know what I'm going to be doing in 3 months. I don't know how I'm going to be, what I'm going to be. So that's that part there, okay?
Advanced planning. I have to say that is something which, since living in the Middle East, I'm a little bit less of an advanced planner now. Growing up in the UK, you do book people sort of weeks in advance, but I lived in Hong Kong and Beijing for a while, and that was where I sort of first started to understand that expatriate life is actually very spontaneous, and you certainly have that in Dubai as well.
And I was in the UK a couple of months ago, and I was in the car with my friend and his wife, and they've got a couple of kids, and we're driving to go and get some lunch, and it was a really nice day. She gets a phone call, and it's from a friend. Oh, I've not seen you in ages, and she gets her diary out, which is a joint diary, a joint calendar with her husband.
Wow,
and they're like, right, we are free in 4 weeks' time. I can schedule you in on Saturday for about 3 hours there. And I was like, oh my God. No, I just love that I've got the freedom to kind of go around and do it. So they know who they are if they're listening to this. Let's go back a little bit, because my old director, I was at a conference, and this is in regards to engagement with clients. And he said, you should always ask some BGQs.
What's that?
Bloody good questions.
Okay.
Bloody good questions. And that's where somebody kind of sits back. And this is interesting, because somebody will sit back and they could be like, and you've got to give them time to process it. Sometimes we don't give people that room to actually 100%. Process it. And it ends up being a surface level response as well. And you never really get what they're really trying to say. But along with that, you ask the question to your friends, like, what are you looking for when it comes to having a lawyer? Now, most people will not feel comfortable actually asking that, because they may say, well, you should know me and you should know what I want. Yeah. So.
And it is an awkward question to ask. I mean, I ask it to a lot of my clients because I just like to take a temperature check. And also, I want to improve myself. So I need to really learn. Sometimes you need to hear the words. You can't just infer everything. But it's definitely like a slightly awkward question to ask. And then I can see every single time that my clients are like, okay, what actually do I want? And they have to think for a second as well.
Bloody good question. See? A BGQ.
I've made one.
So a lot of people feel that they're not allowed to ask questions, because it shows that they should know their stuff. And that's why they just start pitching Like you said, you put deals together. Okay, so if we look at that, you're a salesperson.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but
yeah, become a salesperson.
There's so much. I think every single person in the world, if they're client facing or human facing, they are in sales.
Yeah.
And that's, how do you persuade somebody? How do you convince somebody? How do you get somebody to go along with you, thinking that they're making a decision when actually you've been guiding them through that path the whole time?
Yeah.
So for me, and I don't hide from this, I'm in sales. That's me. Yeah. Some people put a different job title to it, but that's what I. So there's this part of it where there's the discovery, and that's asking questions.
Yeah.
So do you have like a sort of set, and how would you go about that in regards to asking those questions?
I think on the personal level questions, it's really unscripted in that respect. It's, it could be as superficial as, oh, I really like your bag. But equally, it could be, oh, by the way, I think we have a mutual friend in common.
Yeah.
Or I think I saw you or met you at a previous conference or something like that. That sort of icebreaker moment. For me, that's completely unscripted. But in terms of gathering legal information, there are certainly questions that I do ask time and time again. And I start off with quite open-ended questions. Tell me about your business. Tell me what you're looking to achieve. Tell me what you want from me. Tell me where you've had bad experiences before that you don't want to happen again. I'm pretty upfront with asking all of these questions. And then I drill down and ask more specific questions. So when people answer that first question, tell me about your business, quite quickly, I sometimes have to say, sorry, can you explain that to me again?
Yeah.
Or can you just go over that in a bit more detail? And I do run the risk of sounding a bit stupid or perhaps not on the ball, but I'm going to look a hell of a lot more stupid if in 6 weeks' time, after they've already instructed me and I've just drafted an agreement for them, or I've applied to the regulator for something for them, that I haven't articulated their business model properly.
Yeah.
I'd look a lot more silly later down the line. So I don't really think there is any such thing as a silly question, and I don't have any shame in asking those questions. And if I've never had a situation where a client's turned around and said, "Are you stupid?" or "Do you not get it?" No, not at all.
Okay, so let me ask you then. That's a great way to look at things. Would you say that most people think the same way as you, as in regards to there's no such thing as a silly question?
Yeah, not in the legal profession, because people are very, very conscious about portraying themselves as someone who just effortlessly gets it and just understands everything without needing an explanation. Because there's a perception that is a lawyer who's just on top of everything. I just don't think that's true, to be honest. And actually, we've had many cases where people have come to us because previous law firms have let them down. And I'm completely convinced it's because they just didn't understand the business model. So that's like the very basics that you should have learned at the beginning.
Yeah.
And there's no harm in asking for further and further clarification. And frankly speaking, if you don't do that, you're probably not going to be serving your client properly. And I think that probably applies beyond just the legal industry.
This is it, and that's why I'm on the hook here at the moment, okay? Because there's a phrase which I use, which is called, that I've learnt over the years, which is called technobabble.
Okay.
Okay, so these are acronyms, abbreviations.
The worst.
Yeah, these are things which we try to sound smart with, and then your client is sat opposite you, and they don't get it.
Yeah.
And the truth is, and that's why I asked, do you think most people would ask? Because they very rarely are they actually going to go, sorry, I don't understand.
Yeah.
So how do you go about being in one of those meetings?
Yeah.
And there's people sat there, and probably different types of, let's say multiple people in the meeting, and you've seen clearly that somebody hasn't understood something. How would you go about? Would you want to resolve it in the room, or would it be something you would do outside? Like how would you go about that?
So I've definitely been in that situation before, more than one occasion. Yeah. And sometimes if I see that someone hasn't understood something, I just ask the question myself as if maybe I'm the person who hasn't understood. And that way it enables the whole room to get clarity on this point. Because actually there's another way of looking at that, right? So if I see someone who looks like they haven't understood something, maybe actually I'm the one who hasn't understood it. And I've maybe made an assumption. So better to just double check. And I know that some people find it easier than others to just speak up and ask the silly questions. I have no qualms with asking silly questions. I also have no qualms with saying to clients, I need to go away and think about that. I'm not going to give you an answer right now. And that was something that previous boss taught me. She was actually incredible. I learned a lot from her, and she would frequently say, no shame in going away and thinking about something, because if you can come back with a more properly constructed answer, that's better than just trying to spit something out there and then on the spot.
And I think the client would appreciate that more.
Yeah.
And that's why, like with my podcast, an example, I don't say to people, tell me 3 things which are going to change your life. Because you're not very, unless it's been rehearsed, and unless like those are things that you literally have told me that you want me to ask you, then it's not really going to be like a real in-depth kind of response. And I always go back to Steve Jobs. There was a video of him in a university, and he got asked a question in the audience, and it was, what did you learn from when you left Next and came back to Apple? So he was at Apple, got sacked from there, went to Next.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. And then everything plummeted at Apple, and they ended up bringing him back. But they had to acquire this Next, which he was, I don't know if he was the owner or the founder. But yeah, so so he took 20 seconds of just thinking of this response. So he could have come back with a cookie cutter response easily, and everyone still would have been happy. But he took his time, and the response he gave, I've got no doubt about it, it's changed most people's business models and how they structure things and how they see things. So you do have that time, and you need to give your client that time as well to kind of think through it and process it.
Yeah, I think having the confidence to have that poise is something that probably most people don't have. And in this super fast world, particularly in the corporate world where you're expected to be, you know, like a shapeshifter, like everything's got to be instantaneous. Like, it's not realistic, to be honest with you. We're still humans. We're not yet AI powered completely.
Everything is a 60-second reel. Okay, so I could clip this up and I put it into a software, and it removes any pausing. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, and you can put up, but that's not how people communicate. No. So there's long form, and then there's where somebody just wants to take a quick headline read and go like, but there's, again, it's just people that read headlines and then they debate you about things which are going on in the world.
100%.
And all they've read is a headline. Did you actually read the 4th line in it where it actually says something completely different in that? So,
everything in life is so much more nuanced, and this is something that I really see so much of, and it's only getting worse. And now so many people who are experts and have all these opinions, but they've maybe just seen a post on Instagram and haven't taken the time to scratch beneath the surface and educate themselves on the real facts. And this, this applies across everything, not just the legal world, but, you know, speaking politics or, I don't know, health or whatever it may be. I do get quite frustrated about that, actually.
So that's where questions come in, because, or in my head, what I'm processing is like, how have they arrived at this information? How have they been thinking of this? So even the other day, I saw this headline, and I actually went and told somebody about it, and I was like, no, let me actually look into this. So I took the headline and the article, and I threw it into ChatGPT, actually. And I said, like, he's saying this right now, but is this actually what was said? And he or she, whatever you want to call the robot, okay? They looked at it and they said, no, actually, people have come out saying that he has said this, but actually, if you read into it properly, they've taken a snippet and they've used this, and now everyone's going around saying that.
Interesting.
Yeah, so we're just full of surface level information at the moment.
Absolutely. Yeah. I subscribed a few years ago to The Economist and sort of like debated about which newspapers I want to subscribe to and spend my money on. But anyway, I'm a big fan, and I spend hours every week reading all of their articles, and some of them take me about 45 minutes to read because I'm actually not the fastest reader. I often read things 2 or 3 times. I go back and rethink about how I'm interpreting that sentence or that fact. And I mean, I get a lot of pleasure from reading this stuff, so it doesn't feel like a chore, but actually I do feel like I'm absorbing a deeper level of information. And that then makes me think more as an individual. I have to really limit the use of ChatGPT and these kind of tools because they are so helpful. I mean, let's be honest, like we've all managed to speed up so many things in our life because of it. But I do worry about critical thinking, and I think that's really important for us as a civilization, actually.
Yeah, I call it, I heard this term the other day, it's a thought partner. So I will put something in there.
Yeah.
But the trouble is, it goes, oh, what a great idea you've come up with.
It's very positive.
And there's a South Park episode about it. It's brilliant. But anyway, it's absolutely amazing. But I actually say to him, no, don't be nice to me. Challenge me, because I need to put this forward to my clients.
Yeah.
What am I missing here? You know, and we all want to be heard, understood, appreciated, and that's exactly what it's doing. But you need to challenge it as well, and that's where the good information comes out, and that's why it's getting better and better and better. Yeah,
that's super interesting, actually. Yeah, it's kind of nice to have a cheerleader in a way, but yes, you do need to be challenged.
Yeah. Well, you need to be challenged by your colleagues, by new opportunities which are coming up. That's where growth takes place.
Yeah.
In those times where you feel the pressure.
Yeah, no doubt in my mind.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities which are coming my way at the moment, and I'm very grateful for them. But I have to kind of go back to what I value, and even with I'm a sales coach, and I was actually defining yesterday what is it I actually teach, because I watch these videos on Instagram and they're closers and getting them to say this and say this and say that. That's not my approach in how I sell. Yeah. I'm sorry, so I've actually had to switch it off because it's been too much.
So interesting. Yeah, lots of experts out there telling you what to do, how to conduct yourself. But maybe if you just sit back, think about your behavior, think about how other people react to you, you can probably find the right path on your own.
Well, it's the right people as well.
Yeah.
So there's 4 or 5 key people that I listen to because they align with me, my values, how I am as a person.
Yeah.
And a lot of that stuff I actually model on, and I use it for my own content, and I give my own take on it. Yeah. So you've got a great playbook to work with, which is all the regulations and the laws.
Yeah.
And then it's down to you. And you said, I hope I get his name right. You said Lord Hope.
Yeah.
Lord Hope. Okay. So he articulated it in a way where he kept it simple for people.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important because there's so much information you've got which you need to put into a position where somebody they don't need to know the ins and outs of it. They just need to know why it's important to them and how it's going to save their business, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think there's nothing quite like plain English, to be honest with you. I don't really subscribe to all the jargon. I live and breathe an industry that absolutely does subscribe to all the jargon, but I'm sort of desperately trying to detach myself from that because a lot of these concepts are just plain and simple. I was actually in the car last night on the way home from the office, and someone from our London office called me and he said, can you explain to me how real world assets are tokenized? Maybe that means something to you, maybe not. But either way, those are quite jargon-esque words in themselves. And we just sort of sat there as I was on the traffic on Alkale Road, just breaking it down. And he said, oh my gosh, this is deceivingly simple. Yeah. And I was like, it really is. But we're living in a world where so many experts are trying to complicate themselves, maybe to promote themselves or make themselves seem more indispensable. But yeah, everything can be broken down into simple, explainable steps. And there's no information in the world that shouldn't be accessible to anybody. Yeah.
But the whole model of that is they show you the what you should be doing, they don't show you the how you're meant to do it. So you've got this information now and you're like, I don't know how to do it. Yeah. And that's where, people, they may come to you and say, hey, can you do a discussion on this new regulation that's come in? And you'll go in, you'll do a good presentation, it'll be great. But it's all in the follow-up of that. So how have they applied that information with their clients? What are they doing to make changes? Yeah. It's the same with anything, right? You've got to repetition. Yeah. And that's the same with storytelling, with articulating moments, with your day-to-day. It's this repetition. Yeah. And then it becomes second nature to you. It's just,
absolutely. I think there's a lot to be said for that. And something that I have struggled with in my career progression from an associate to a partner is now I have a responsibility to bring in a certain amount of business every year to the law firm. And essentially that turns me from being an academic, just drafting things in the office, to being a bit of a saleswoman. And that's definitely been a transition. And now I love people. I love connecting with people, talking to people, but then taking the step beyond that and actually selling something to them is not something that has come very naturally to me. And it's something that, I'm certainly still learning. And one of the partners in our London office, was actually messaging him at about 10 o'clock last night, asking for some advice on approaching certain clients. And he said, you've just got to be repetitive and you've got to be engaging, and gave me a list of things. And to be honest with you, it's all good advice. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you this now, okay? So I've got a very good friend of mine who I respect a lot, and he's got a very successful company here. And it turned out he ended up bringing in a client or a company to do some sales training.
Uh-huh.
And I said to him, but I'm a sales trainer. Why didn't you ask me? He said, you never asked me. He said, you never asked me. So we've got these great relationships, but sometimes you've actually just got to go, right, let's do some business together.
Yeah. And that's a difficult line to cross.
It's really hard, because I don't want to ask people for stuff. That's something that I struggle with.
Same.
But everyone says to me, why didn't you ask me? I would have done it for you.
Yeah. Actually, some of the most successful partners at my law firm, they have very close friendship circle, and they are also all clients of theirs as well. And that's something that I struggle with a little bit. And yesterday lunchtime, I was just running out the office and I bumped into a friend of mine, and I thought about it yesterday afternoon. I thought, gosh, he could absolutely be a client.
Yeah.
Why haven't I pursued that? But I also feel a bit nervous or a bit awkward to ask people for things, and particularly friends, actually. Yeah.
They will say to you every single time, I know, you should have asked me, I would have done it. Yeah.
I know.
All right.
But mixing business with pleasure it's hard. It's tough, actually.
It is tough. I agree. So, and as we finish up, I want to thank you for coming in today.
Thank you.
I understand the side of things a bit better. Now it's my responsibility to go on a journey to dive a bit deeper into it as well, which is important. I hope that the audience has taken in what you've said, either whether it's a long form video or they've just watched a little reel. In the show notes, I'll be putting your profile, the company.
Thank you.
Is there anything which you want to finish with?
What I always say to clients or potential clients is, I'm super available on the phone, LinkedIn, email, whatever. And I'm always happy to engage in conversations with people. So anyone wants to reach out and even just discuss anything with no strings attached in terms of legal advice, I would always be open to that.
And I thank you again for your time. And this is your turning point.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for watching, everybody. You could have been anywhere else, but you've been here with me, and I appreciate that. But remember, knowledge isn't power. Applied knowledge is power. From this episode, take one thing and action it, and you never know where it's going to get you. Now, if you've seen this as valuable, the only way we spread this across the community is by you liking, commenting, and sharing. Because everybody, this could be their turning point.